Washington and put it back in the hands of the people where it belongs.
Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's officially launching her campaign, joining fellow hopefuls.
The president tweeting out yesterday that he is not giving in this battle over the border. The clock is ticking, though, because they have a deadline of this Friday.
Every Democrat, every Republican wants to do what is right to secure our border. There's no national emergency at our border.
They need open borders because they need voters. This is a pure power play.
Virginia lawmakers struggling with an accelerating political crisis. Ralph Northam fending off calls to resign.
If this was going on with Republicans, all chains and fences would have broke loose through every corner of this country. That's right.
We've seen Democrats calling for the defunding of ICE, but Congresswoman Omar wants to completely see the Department of Homeland Security vanish.
A Yale University newspaper editor calling for students to spy, yes, spy on fellow white male college students.
Promise to keep fighting for that, guys.
Of all the Garth Brooks songs, this one? I know. There's so many good ones.
You know all the words, too. I always see...
I don't know this Garth Brooks song at all.
No, but you know a lot of it.
I do know a lot of lyrics.
Well, nice job. Hard-hitting interview with Nick Lachey. That was good.
Yeah, it was good.
You better believe it. If you don't love Nick Lachey, you don't love America.
That's true.
I know you love Nick Lachey.
I'm a big fan. I would sing some of his songs right now, but I'll spare the audience.
It was 98 degrees?
98 degrees.
But that wasn't how... Newlyweds is how I knew him.
Oh, that was a great show.
It was a real reality series with
Simpson.
Jessica Simpson. It was good.
Still
TV.
sad about that breakup.
Is it on Netflix or Hulu? You should check it out. Binge watch.
Amazing.
We just love TV.
You learn way more about our lives than you should.
It is.
It's great to have you here.
You know, you learn something new every day about this guy. Now he's a reality TV fan. Who knew?
Well, phases
of
life. You know.
Yes.
And that was
you're
one of them.
Eating day-old pizza on Fox and
Still on
Friends,
the couch?
You've evolved, Pete.
See it.
All right,
Someone stole my Pizza Hut.
And there are a lot of big stories this morning, including the battle at the border, which continues. Remember that bipartisan conference committee on Capitol Hill still meeting. They have a big deadline of this Friday to come up with some sort of a border deal. Otherwise, we are headed for another partial government shutdown.
Yeah, the president weighing in yesterday on his thoughts as it progresses. He said this. He said, Democrats just don't seem to want border security. They're fighting border agents' recommendations. If you believe news reports, they're not offering much for the wall. They look to be making this a campaign issue. The wall will get built one way or the other.
Yeah, so now people are wondering, too, will he cave on the number? What is that final number going to be? What is he willing to accept? And like we've been saying, will it wind up being a deal where everyone's disappointed, where, you know, people on the right feel like Trump didn't dig his heels in, you know, enough, where people on the left feel like, well, you know, the Democrats gave Trump too much. Bottom line is these two sides need to come together. And one of the reasons is because if you look at Jim Clifton, the chairman and CEO of Gallup, he came out, there was a poll, and it said 42 million seekers of citizenship or asylum are watching to determine exactly when and how is the best time to make the move. This suggests that open borders could potentially attract 42 million Latin Americans. A full 5 million who are planning to move in the next 12 months say they are moving to the United States. So Gallup conducted this poll and put it out there to stress, look, you know, we're talking about an emergency situation. Many folks on the left are ignoring that. They're saying it's a manufactured crisis. When you look at these numbers, you realize we do have to figure out what to do with these people. We do have to figure out a plan moving forward. Now or never.
Yes. Right, because what they're saying there, Gallup, is millions more coming to America from Latin America, migrants, some legal, some trying to get in illegally. And so Democrats continue to say it's a manufactured crisis, and even though we may have up to 42 million more people coming from Latin America in the next few years.
5 million in 12 months.
That's crazy.
We have a porous border, terrible asylum laws that don't make any sense. I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with you. You say that they need to come together. I don't think they can come together. The left and the right on this issue are fundamentally opposed. The middle ground solution is going to be some swamp garbage compromise that gives a little bit of funding
the president
here.
alluded to that in his tweet about very little money. We're hearing maybe $1.2 to $1.9 billion. That is pretty paltry.
You can't be at a
compared to the
standstill,
$25 billion that he requested, that everyone agreed on just years ago, came down to 5.7. 1.3 is what's always kind of been in there with serious restrictions. To go up to 1.9 is not a win. That's a loss. So if you can't get to that compromise, declare the national emergency that is within your constitutional authority and build the wall. I think that's how a lot of people feel, because the Democrats are totally obstinate. This is a form of resistance. This committee, I mean, I have almost actually, I'm going to go almost zero, completely zero faith that a conference committee is going to come up with something meaningful.
The fear, though, is that he will suffer politically if he does that. Everyone's worried, he
but
does
that's
need
the
to run for
conventional
re-election. Of
thinking
course,
in my mind.
It is, absolutely, and I think folks on the right...
He doesn't suffer from bold stances.
I think folks on the right are very much with you and do feel that it's now or never and that a national emergency is fully within his purview to do. I do think he's trying to walk a fine line, though, there of wanting to be reelected, not wanting... You look at some of these policies coming out from people on the left. I mean, it's getting wild and crazy out there, and I think at the back of his mind, he's saying, we got a long-term battle here. This isn't just about today, but it's about tomorrow, and it's about, 2020.
Right. Pete makes a fair point about the president digging in, taking bold stands, but at the end of the day, also campaigned on the art of the deal, and is going to have to get something to show and take to voters, not just in his fellow Republican voters, but reaching out to independent voters.
But once you build the wall, you dare the left to tear it down. That's why they hate it so much. You build this wall, and it becomes popular and effective. Who's going to run for office saying, I'm going to tear down Trump's wall? By the way, someone will say that. All these candidates coming out, and you've got all these declared candidates. This is a list of the declared candidates, a lot of exploratory committees out there. Right now on the left, from Democrats, you've got former Representative John Delaney.
He's a current rep.
I don't know him.
Yeah.
Andrew Yang, Representative Tulsi Gabbard, former HUD Secretary Julian Castro, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and
Elizabeth Warren made it official yesterday. You also have Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota, expected to announce today. She's putting a toe in the water as well. Elizabeth Warren, in her home state of Massachusetts yesterday, laid out her platform.
Today, millions and millions and millions of American families are also struggling to survive in a system that's been rigged by the wealthy and the well-connected. This is the fight of our lives. I stand here today to declare that I am a candidate for President of the United States of America.
Look, the class warfare that she brings to the table is something that's very divisive. Obviously, we talked about it last hour. But I actually think her talking about a rigged system is very reminiscent of what President Trump campaigned on in 2016. If she winds up being the Democratic nominee, I'm certainly not predicting that. We've got a long way to go. We'll see. Some of her themes about the elitists and whatnot are the same kind of themes that the president ran on in 2016 and won on.
About the elitists, though, I mean, just to remind people, though, she's very wealthy. She was a Harvard law professor. It's really interesting to have someone in those shoes. Has anyone seen a screenshot of her home? I mean, you're talking about a system being rigged by the rich. You are rich. You are from that elite. I mean, maybe you didn't grow up there, or maybe she talks about her dad was a janitor, but from the position you're in right now, listen, not everybody who's rich is a bad person, and you know that very well because you're not a bad person and you are wealthy. So there you go.
Went to Harvard. Okay, the president tweeted shortly after her announcement today, Elizabeth Warren, sometimes referred to by me as Pocahontas, joined the race for president. Will she run as our first Native American presidential candidate? Or has she decided that after 32 years, this is not playing so well anymore?
Yeah, and he went on to say, see you on the campaign trail, all in caps.
Wow.
See you on the campaign trail, Liz, exclamation point.
Yeah, but the trail part,
I have to ask you, though, Pete, because I want to ask you this question, though, because when you see something like that, there's two groups here. Some feel that Trump does not help himself by engaging in this kind of sarcasm and when he makes references like this, and others feel like, you know what, she's asking for it. She lied about her Native American heritage for years.
He's a marketer.
You know what? He's doing what he needs to do.
He has put her campaign race dead in the water from day one by defining her fraudulent stance to benefit herself by giving her a nickname that everyone has been utterly effective. That's why they don't want us to use it or say it, because it's been effective.
Yeah.
Well, Rob Lowe, the actor, tweeted yesterday, Elizabeth
Rob
Warren
Lowe, yeah, we track his
would bring
tweets.
a whole new meaning to Commander-in-Chief, and he put chief in quotes. There were a lot of people online who got a little upset about that. So
who got upset about that? Who?
I'm just saying it was
the
a
PC
thing.
Police. The PC Police.
The PC
is out there
Police,
strong and heavy. And he actually followed it up with a second tweet saying, I deleted my Elizabeth Warren tweet. It was a joke, and some peeps got upset, and that's never my intention. On the good side, I just got to use the Oxford comma.
What is an
Oxford
comma?
Oxford comma, actually?
I didn't go to Oxford, but I don't know what it is.
But the question is...
Do you know what an Oxford comma is?
Someone was just
producers are telling us what it is? That's bad.
Final comma after a whole list of things. So
okay.
you had the quotes around Chief, and then there was the
Right.
It was a period, though.
Oh, it was a period.
Listen,
The question is,
isn't
do you apologize? Should he have apologized?
No.
Should he have deleted the tweet?
Is he? Last time I checked, you've watched Rob Lowe movies. Isn't he? He's a comedian, right?
He is.
Are we not allowed to use comedy in America today? Yeah, really. Look, this is the question we have. What's his name on yesterday? Michael Loftus. Like, we allowed to make jokes in this country. You can laugh, lighten up, everybody.
Yeah, but the thing is, Pete, he wants to work again in this business, and unfortunately, we're now in a position where if you don't apologize, you don't delete, you don't walk it back, he's at risk of in Hollywood. This guy would never work again. You have to be afraid to not walk this stuff back in 2019. Look,
Whole
I said
new
2019.
meaning to commander and
Well, you saw that the president took heat as well because he put trail all in caps, and some thought that was a reference to the Trail of Tears, where a lot of people died.
Well, no one's making fun of the fact that people suffered and died. Like, you can recognize a historical tragedy while at the same time also making fun of someone who misrepresented themselves. Like,
and in a way,
everyone needs to calm down.
In a way, she was making a mockery because she, for years, lied about her own heritage, and many see that as, she wasn't being respectful of Native Americans. So,
and then she took that definitive DNA test and showed that she was
1 out of 1,024.
Thank you.
All right, let us know what you think about Elizabeth Warren, the back and forth with Rob Lowe, and the president friends at Fox News.
So I'll tell you this. I have a great honor this morning. Former Green Beret Major Matt Goldstein, he faces murder charges for a 2010 death of a suspected Taliban bomb maker in Afghanistan. They were in the Battle of Marja, and this guy had been responsible for setting bombs that had killed American troops. He and his wife will join us exclusively on Fox and Friends shortly to talk about this. This is a guy who's under charges from the Army. He's on lockdown at Fort Bragg, but he's coming here to talk to us. And they want to charge him with murder on the battlefield. And a lot of people have been looking at this case and saying, a lot of questions about rules of engagement. Can we untie the hands of our warfighters? This guy's making tough calls in the heat of the moment to save his men. He gets his side of the story before he faces the military quote justice system. It's going to be an interesting interview.
Coming up at 8:30, and I can't wait to hear what he says. All right, we're going to turn now to some headlines for you this morning. 5 children, ages 12 to 16, are charged in the murder of a rising country star. Kyle Yorletz was fatally shot outside his Nashville home. Police say the suspects demanded the singer's wallet and car keys. He refused, and they shot him. They were later arrested at a Walmart. The DA will decide if they are tried as adults. More than 1,000 people honor a Virginia trooper killed in the line of duty. Police officers from across the country gathered to pay their respects to fallen state trooper Lucas Dowell. Dowell was killed during a drug raid this week. The 4-year veteran of the force is survived by his parents and sister. Incredible video as firefighters perform CPR on a dog, saving its life. The firefighters found the dog while responding to a house fire in California. They rushed him out and started CPR. The dog eventually springs up, appearing okay. I love this story. No one else in the home was hurt in the fire. Thank you, firefighters. You warm my heart every single day with stuff like this.
I would not know how to perform CPR on a dog.
I think it's the same way as you would on a human. And if I knew how to do it, I would rush to that dog so fast.
Wonderful story.
These guys are
Absolutely.
and ladies, just thank you so much.
All right, more than 200,000 illegals apprehended at the border in a matter of months. Is this more proof we need a wall? Well, ask former Border Patrol Chief under President Obama, Mark Morgan. He is next.
And it's President Trump on parade, like you've never seen him before. That's real, and that's in Italy.
Oh, boy.
We'll bring it.
Every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News Headlines 24/7, Channel 115.
As lawmakers come closer to a deal on securing funding for border security, new numbers show the problem at the border, it's only getting worse. Over 200,000 illegals were apprehended in the past 4 months. That's nearly double from the same time last year, up 84%. Is this more proof we need a wall? Here to weigh in is former Border Patrol Chief under President Obama, Mark Morgan. Mark, thanks for joining us this morning. So we're hearing, information from news reports about this conference committee that's meeting to determine a compromise outcome. Yet it seems like they might not fund the wall much more than they have in the past. Is this an emergency, and are they seeing this issue clearly?
So yes, it's an emergency, and clearly, no, they're not. It's clearly infused with identity politics. What I would say, Pete, and you know, how many more facts, how many more examples do we need, does Congress need to show that this is a crisis? Not only the numbers are increasing, so if the numbers stay consistent this year in 2019, you're going to look at 720,000 individuals illegally entering this country.
Wow.
Right now, Border Patrol, they've had 58 caravans of 100 or more. Last year, the entire year last year, they had 13. And they're going to tell me that this isn't a crisis?
Well, and Gallup is reporting just this morning, we're talking about a survey they've done to show that over 5 million people from Latin America are planning to come to the United States in the next 12 months. Yet Hillary Clinton recently in a interview talked about the fact that, Republicans and Democrats both believe in border security. Can you truly believe in border security if you're not talking seriously about a physical barrier?
Of course not. And again, it's a great point. Right now, think about that. The pull factors, the experts, and the experts called this. The experts knew that this was coming, and they know it's going to keep coming. As long as we have the incentives and the pull factor, who would come here to the ports of entry and try to do it legally? Right? I mean, you can see they're doing that at a couple of ports right now, and the illegal immigrants, they're already getting frustrated. And what are they doing? They're just going around. And right now, there's a new technique that they're actually taking buses now right to areas a few miles outside the ports to actually be dropped off and come in illegally. Why? Because as soon as they set one foot on soil, a couple days later, they're released into the interior United States. The incentive is there. They have no incentive to do this legally.
So, Mark, if you could wave a magic wand, which is not how policy gets made, but we do TV, what is the one or two things you would change immediately?
Two things. You have to fund the wall as part of that multi-layered strategy, infrastructure, technology, and personnel. The second thing you have to do, you have to fix the broken asylum laws and bad judicial precedent like Florida's that forces Border Patrol and ICE to release these individuals into the interior United States.
Well said, Mark. Mark Morgan, thank you very much for your service and for your time this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
All right. Coming up, will some people in Chicago, well, they could soon get free money. Time for your news by the numbers. First, $1.5 million. That's the street value. Hundreds of pounds of meth found during two busts in Georgia. Authorities arrested 7 Mexican nationals in the raid. Next, $18 million. That's how much this doomsday bunker is listed for. The home sits 26 feet underground, 2 miles from the Vegas Strip. The 14,000 square foot bunker is designed to survive any catastrophic event. If I could save up and buy that, I probably would. Finally, $1,000. That's how much money 1,000 Chicago residents could soon get every month for doing nothing. A mayoral task force proposing a plan to hand out free cash to tackle poverty. Unfortunately, a lot of Democrats running for president also would like to do the same. Ed, to you.
Very interesting. Thanks, Pete. Firefighters were literally left in tears after an Alabama veteran's house burned down. Left behind among the ashes, they had an incredible discovery, a completely unscathed Bible. You see it there. It belonged to the grandfather of our next guest, a veteran and father of 4, who is calling it simply a sign from God.
Scott Bird, well, he joins us now. Scott, welcome to the show. Good morning. Tell us a little bit about this fire. So sorry to hear about your home, but this Bible that was completely unscathed. And what does that Bible mean to you? And the fact that it was unscathed, what does that mean for you?
Well, I never thought that my house burned down, and it was just starting out like any other Sunday. But the only thing that survived that fire was my grandfather's Bible.
And how much does that Bible mean to your family? How was it passed on through the generations?
Well, it means the world to me. I still bring it to church on Sunday, and as soon as I open this Bible up, the whole congregation can smell the smoke that the Bible puts off. But it survived that fire, so it's going to be at church with me.
Oh, wow.
Now, you were at church at the time of the fire. 2 of your kids were at a party. What, as a man of faith, what does it mean for you to come home, have been at church while this was going on, come home and you find this sentimental Bible that you value so much that is unharmed? What does that mean for your faith?
Well, I mean, that it just strengthened my faith, and I knew that that everything was going to be okay. Somehow, throughout all the tragedy that our family's been through and all the devastation, we still, you know, we have our faith and we don't ever give up.
Yeah.
And whatever hurdle comes at us in life, we'll overcome it.
And talk a little bit about rebuilding. Are you rebuilding that house? Have they leveled it? Talk about how your family is putting things back together.
Well, right now we're temporarily staying in Gulf Shores in a family house, and but we're planning to rebuild as quick as we can back on our property in Bon Secure. And my goal is to have my family back on my property by June 6th of next year.
Scott, I know the community has been very helpful with beds, with linens, with supplies, financially. What can our viewers do to help you out?
Well, prayers, of course. Please pray for our family. And we have a GoFundMe page set up on my page, Scott Bird, and then my daughter's page, Prayers for Shelby Bird.
That's on Facebook, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, that's on Facebook.
And real quick, last question, June 6th, what's the significance? Is it a family date, or why June 6th?
Well, that is the day that we was at church and the fire happened.
So it'll be 1 year.
It'll be 1 year, yes,
all right.
yes,
well,
sir.
we certainly wish your family well, and it's really, despite this awful event, the fact that you've come together and have stronger faith is really a great message for us
Very
this
admirable.
morning.
And thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Mr. Bird.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank y'all.
All right.
Thank y'all for having me.
Great story. Thank you, sir. Meanwhile, New York and Virginia, just two of the states strong outrage over new laws easing restrictions on late-term abortions.
As the debate grows, 3 abortion survivors are here to share their personal stories. That's coming up next. Controversial legislation to ease restrictions on late-term abortions is at the center of a fierce nationwide debate. New York passing a sweeping law allowing abortions up until a baby's due date. Democrat lawmakers in Virginia under fire for comments surrounding a similar bill pushing post-birth abortion or infanticide. Lawmakers in Vermont and Rhode Island also pushing radical bills. While the legal lines between abortion rights and restrictions continue to blur, I am joined by 3 abortion survivors who are here to share their personal stories. Melissa Oden. Melissa is the founder of Abortion Survivors Network. Josiah Presley and Claire Colwell are also here. Thank you so much for joining us. Your personal stories completely captivated me. I want to just go down the line. I want to talk to you guys and have you share just briefly your personal story as being survivors of abortion. And we'll start with you, Melissa.
I survived a failed saline infusion abortion in 1977. And most people know it really took me most of my life to piece together the story of my life. But what I know is that my birth mother was 19 years old. She was a college student, unmarried, and it was her family who was responsible for forcing the abortion upon her. I should have been poisoned and scalded to death in the womb. My procedure actually lasted 5 days. And on the 5th day of the abortion procedure, I was delivered, believing that I would be a successful abortion. And lo and behold, I was born alive.
Wow. Wow. Josiah?
Yeah, so I'm actually adopted into a family of 12 kids. And when I was 13 years old, my adopted parents, they told me about how my birth mother, 2 months into her pregnancy with me, actually underwent a curettage abortion. They thought the procedure had been successful, but a few months later, they realized that it actually failed. And so I was born later on October 7th, 1995, and I was placed with the foster home ministry in South Korea, where I was born, and lived there for about 13 months before I was adopted and brought over to the States, where I live with my family now.
Wow. These are miracle stories. Yes, Claire.
My birth mother, I'm adopted as well, and my birth mother was 13 years old when she was pregnant with me, and her mother took her to an abortion clinic where she had a late-term D&C surgical abortion, and they told her that her life would go back to normal, but 6 weeks later she realized that things were not going back to normal, and so she went back to that doctor and found out that her abortion had been successful, but that she had been pregnant with twins and one had survived.
And that's you.
That was me,
That's
and
you.
I was born 6 weeks later, and my hips were completely dislocated. My feet were turned in as club feet, and I was in the hospital for 2 months and had body casts for the first 2 years of my life because of that abortion. But I'm
Wow.
grateful to be here today.
These are such amazing stories. I know people at home listening, it probably inspires quite a bit of faith in some. It's a miracle to many. But when you hear, Melissa, when you hear these conversations about abortion now taking a turn where we're not just talking about abortions that happen early on in pregnancy, you have politicians now fighting for abortions very late term. They're talking about potential no rights for these babies even after they're born, complete dehumanization of the process. How does it feel for you, having survived an abortion, to listen to this language and feel like these babies have no rights?
That's why we're here today, right? Because we need to have a conversation about the fact that we exist. These are human beings whose lives are being affected. And I think it's important we recognize the more Democrats introduce this kind of legislation through the third trimester, the greater the likelihood is going to be that children like us survive abortions. Our lives should not be left in the hands of our abortionists or the luck of the draw of who's working that day. You know, we fight for our lives in the womb. We shouldn't have to fight for our lives yet again after we're born alive.
Josiah, you know, Governor Northam in Virginia, who's embroiled in a bit of scandal, a lot of that scandal started when he started speaking about late-term abortions in an interview. I have a soundbite of that I want to play for you and just get your reaction. Let's take a listen.
If a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mothers.
He's saying the infant would be resuscitated if that's what they desired, and then a discussion would ensue. Many are considering this a conversation about the murder of a now-born child. What is your guttural reaction to that?
I mean, honestly, it's shocking, but it's also not surprising just living in a country where abortion, you know, it's legal in the first parts of a person's development. I mean, when we have arbitrary definitions of personhood, this is where it leads, right? We end up with conversations of right after a child's born, are we considering them valuable or not? And that causes us to say we need to open up the discussion again to recognize that we need to have objective criteria for personhood, and that would, for us, we believe, begin at conception.
Yep. Claire, we have 2 minutes. Just any last-minute words for people about maybe a message to Democratic lawmakers who are fighting for these things?
We just want people to know that we do exist. We do have names. We do have stories. We are human. We weren't any less human in our mother's wombs. And so we want people to be able to put a face with what they're voting on, what they're deciding on, and what laws are being put forth.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much. I know this has been such an incredible experience just to listen to what you've had to say on this, and just amazing.
Quick headlines for you. Los Angeles, officially a sanctuary city. Council members unanimously approving the resolution. It's been deemed a mostly symbolic move against President Trump's immigration policies. And Florida's Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz is proposing a new law to hold people who lie to Congress accountable. This could apply to high-profile people like former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and former FBI Director James Comey. If approved, the Justice for All Act would require equal punishment for anyone who lies to Congress, regardless of politics or fame.
Equal justice under the law.
Yeah, novel concept. And check this out. President Trump featured as a God Emperor at a carnival in Italy. Thousands of people watching the float as it rolled through a parade in one of Italy's biggest events. The God Emperor, even complete with a Twitter sword.
You see the tweets there, blue tweets.
There you go. I mean, if I could build a float,
I'm not
That
sure.
would be it?
Not sure if I like it, but it's
Let's
interesting.
do it.
All right. Meanwhile, the political chaos in Virginia continues. The state's top 2 leaders refusing to step down amid separate scandals.
The state's lieutenant governor is accused of sexually assaulting 2 women.